Okay, good morning. This is day 70 of little videos to make sane, to describe sane thoughts, or read out of little books, or think little thoughts, and put them for record on YouTube for when hopefully expose the schizophrenia program. But this is a day in the life or thought in the life of me as schizophrenic and share my experience. And on day 17 and day 45 of these videos, I have them on my social media accounts to the pinned posts. And day 17 describes why I call myself a schizophrenic rather than targeted individual. And day 45 describes why I am making these videos in the first place. In the first 3 to 4 minutes of that video, it has an intro. I have written a book on medium.com. It's called Unveiling the Schizophrenic Tradition. And I post that on my bio sections of my social media accounts, as well as pinned posts and Facebook. Okay, so I was going to get into something here, and I was going to read out of this book. Sorry, I'm doing the reading out of this book. That's just kind of dense, and so it's difficult for me to regurgitate what I've read. This is a continuation from the other day in reading out of this book, and the author says it has to do with fifth generation warfare, or what he calls Omniwar. He says fifth generation warfare is an all-out war. He's quoting an author named Corbett. Fifth generation is an all-out war that is being waged against all of us right now, and it is a battle for full spectrum dominance over every other aspect of your life. Your movements and interactions, your transactions, even your innermost thoughts and feelings and desires. Governments the world over are working with corporations to leverage technology to control you down to the genomic level, and they will not stop until each of and every person who resists them is subdued and eliminated. So now, doesn't that sound like what schizophrenics have talked about for century? That there was a organized political effort to control them, or harass them, or do something to them. And so now you have people with this is a guy with a PhD. He studied at Oxford, and he's describing a system which sounds an awful lot like somebody who's a paranoid schizophrenic describing something. And so obviously I'm saying I've experienced it, and I'm telling you it's not something that is chalked up to some sort of disease or whatever. It's this real system that people are coming into contact with. And he goes on, he says, this is an apt description of the global class war, though Corbett's anarchism makes him reluctant to frame it in that language of class and edges him in the direction of parallel societies rather than revolution. A better term than fifth generation warfare, I propose, is omniwar. The key thing to understand is that the transnational ruling class has weaponized everything against the population, as indeed it must to subdue billions of people. The war is being waged in every conceivable domain, yet in ways that are intended to remain concealed as far as possible. Corbett, for instance, discusses information warfare, neurological warfare, biological warfare, and economic warfare, and notes the wider operation to manipulate, control, and weaponize all aspects of our environment, our food supply, and even our genome itself for the purposes of the ruling oligarchs. To this list we add, he goes into a few things to add to that list, including neurosecurity, psychological warfare, 5G, deprivation of necessary health care, bioweapons masquerading as vaccines, stratospheric aerosol injection. So this, like I said before, this obviously sounds like what schizophrenics talk about. And in your experience with schizophrenia, you're going to describe a lot of things that are explained through this book and this author here and what his findings are. Now, I'm not like I say, once you go down the schizophrenic reality, you start to say like, well, I don't know if I can really trust this guy to say everything exactly correct, but maybe he is correct because maybe he wants us to be in a battle with each other or something, I don't know. So, but I thought I would read that and just share that information. They talk about being controlled on the genomic level, and supposedly with a thing that, he talked about his thoughts and feelings being controlled. And I definitely experienced that. I have experienced my thoughts being controlled and my mind being controlled and my feelings. And one of the things they talk about is there was a security international specialist or whatever, SIS, I think was the name of the company, and the guy's name was Justin Carter or Brian Coffron, and he had said that your DNA resonance frequency is what once people get access to your DNA, they can send the signals to control your mind and your body. And they just need access to your DNA, and then they can remotely do it. And basically, what I learned in the New York Times article that I put in my book is that people can get access to your DNA just by walking by you on the street. So some surveillance organization wants to add control of your DNA. They just find out, oh, this guy goes to the store at this store, surveil this store when he shows up, da 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 da. Or they could have a sonar radar thing monitor you in your house and what you're saying in your house, and then know when you're going to leave your house because you talk out loud. And they show up there, collect your DNA just because you walked by, and then all of a sudden, now they can read your mind and stuff. And like I just described something that's like, oh, you're a paranoid schizophrenic, but it's no, this is the real technology because schizophrenics talk about things that as they happen in 2025 and not 1950 or 1940 or whatever. So people are operating under a 1940 guise when we're really in 19 or 2025 or so. Oh yeah. Speaking of 2025 and not being in 1950, uh, I was reading in my UFO book. I don't have it up with me here, but I was reading my UFO book all about Apollo 11 and the fact that like when Apollo 11, when the astronauts were coming back to Earth, they originally wanted to quarantine them because they were afraid they would bring back pathogens from the moon and cause like a severe outbreak of like a biohazard outbreak or whatever. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, that we've been worried about biohazards like that. All right, I wanted to talk about something really quickly here. I made my statement the other day about trans persons in women's sports, and I wanted to iterate here that I wanted to specify that, and I did specify in that statement, but I didn't make it clear that I was specifying in that statement. My definitive thought is I don't think that men who become developed men and then transition to women after being developed men should be in women's sports. That's my opinion because I'm just expressing that because I come into contact with this issue as someone that where it dominates society. Everything I've said is what I think, but at the same time, I don't think I should have a real say in the matter other than just public opinion. I don't. I think it should be left up to governing bodies of women's athletics I don't think the president should put his hand in the arena and tip the scale. That's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right with that opinion, but that's my opinion. Like I say, I'm not saying that I'm right with the opinion of trans women in sports who used to be men. As far as like uh, my thought on like trans athletes who were like transitioning at a younger age or were in between genders at a younger age or born in between genders or whatever, uh, or non-binary or whatever, that it's a little messier, you know. So it's not that cut and dry. And so, but I do think that I my opinion is that men who were born men and they became developed men and then transitioned afterwards, they have just a different physicality, a very different physicality than a woman. And it's not really fair to women for that person to be in women's athletics. It's not necessarily fair to the trans person that they don't have an outlet for competing in athletics and excelling in athletics as the trans woman after they become a developed man. But you know, it's just the nature of being different. You know, it's just so. You know, a wheelchair, someone in a wheelchair can't compete, doesn't have the right to compete in NBA basketball because the wheelchair can be an encumbrance for the other athletes. And it's kind of a dangerous thing, and it's a weird, advantageous thing in some ways. So, you know, it's just a different. You have to participate in an organized, different way, and that's just kind of a natural way of human society and stuff. So I saw something that someone says we complicate things as humans and stuff, and yeah. So Gavin Newsome gave me the feedback that he was watching me, and I think I said that in the morning, and he did it in the morning too, or whatever. I had written it in my book or whatever. So Gavin's on a feed. I get feedback from Democrats and Republicans. They're like obsessed with me. Now he's on a podcast or something like that. I didn't even know he had a podcast. But like I don't view this as a podcast. And I said in one of my videos in the early ones that they wanted me to run for political office a lot of times. And I'm never gonna run for political office. I'm not necessarily recommending that Gavin Newsom say what he said uh, for as a politician, but you know he did. So uh, I'm not a politician, so I don't know why he's mimicking me, but uh, I'm just expressing my thoughts as a person, or we kept putting him on record for exposing this program or whatever. And Gavin Newsom helped me a little bit because he was saying like, "Hey, people are this feed gets downloaded and sent somewhere, maybe even from satellite from the sky or something." So, yeah. Okay, so SpaceX made a launch. Elon Musk company made a launch and it failed and exploded. And I think that these SpaceX and these billionaire rockets are ploys to make people believe that we aren't exploring space on the UFOs and all of that technology in a breakaway civilization. So they make it seem like, oh, even the world's richest guys, the best they can do is get on a rocket. And it's just not really believable. And yeah, so uh okay. On Sunday, I'm going to play pickleball with my brother-in-law. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun to get out there. We're going to learn pickleball, so I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing. I still haven't bought the shoes yet. I got to buy the shoes. I got to buy pickleball shoes. My feet were hurting a little bit on the walk home yesterday. We did another 3.5 miler. We're going to get up to 4 by sometime in the next couple weeks. And then we're on our way to 8. All right. thank you for listening. This was a fun one, I guess. Not really, but all right. Thank you so much. Goodbye.